Hey guys, and welcome to my live. I really have been wanting to talk about this because I heard this on another podcast, and it just really caused a lot of thoughts in my head. And I am a person who, for the longest time, I had no idea who I was. I had no idea what I enjoyed in life. I had no idea what made me happy. I didn't even know like who I was. If you were to ask me the things like, what do you enjoy? What are your hobbies? I had no clue. I just kind of gave the generic like mom answers of I like to scrapbook, I like to craft. I do not. I do not like any of those. Um but for the longest time, I had no idea. I had no idea who I was. I had no idea what I liked to do. And and so it sent me down a rabbit hole of trying to figure out who I was in life. And one of the things that I started is reading books specifically about like personalities, your love language, all those types of things. So I love those types of books because they helped me figure out who I was. And if it ever, if anybody wants to know the different books, I've got a list of things. If you don't know who you are, if you don't know what you love, absolutely, I have a list of books that really did help. The thing that was interesting though is as I started going down this rabbit hole, part of that is to create labels for yourself, right? Like you put yourself in a box with these labels. So as a person, if you're going to take a personality test, they use like colors or they use letters or numbers, funny little words. And so anytime they had a test, anytime they had something, I filled it out. And now I'm this. I'm a number 4 with a secondary 3. I have, I love acts of service or I love words of affirmation, right? Like you just start labeling yourself. So, it got to a point where I was a 4, secondary 3, and I love acts of service with all this stuff and then and here's another label and here's another label and not to mention the fact that at some point, you go to the doctor and now you get labeled with well, at least I did. This is my journey. You get labeled with ADHD and all this other stuff and another acronym added onto it every time you go back to the doctor. And so the reality is you just get this list of labels as to who you are. And I say that really helped me figure out who I was. It really helped me to figure out what I enjoyed in life. And it helped me to figure out, sometimes I'm an introvert, but I like being extrovert. I'm like the double one and that kind of thing. So I say when I get into what I'm going to talk about, I say that knowing full well that I was a person who loved labels because they helped me be the person and figure out who I was and figure out what I enjoyed in life. So when I say we got to let the labels go. Like at a certain point, the labels are not going to be helpful. That it is true. That is the thing that I kind of want to talk about. And I heard this on another podcast and they were genuinely talking about like they didn't agree with the personalities and they didn't agree with like energy types and they didn't agree with like all the labels. And as they got talking about it, at first I was going, I love a good label. That helped me so much to figure out who I was because I didn't know who I was. And the more I read these books, the more that it helped me with my rules. It helped me figure out my authenticity. But here's kind of what happened. After I started figuring out who I was and these books and personalities and these labels, they started to kind of help me figure out who I was. At a certain point, I created my own authenticity with those labels. But now I'm getting to the point where I just want to do what I want to do. I don't care. I don't care that that's not my personality. If I want to go learn a certain skill set and that's kind of contradictory to who I am, I'm now to a point I'm just going to go learn it. And I think that's the point. I think that's really the point. If you're really lacking in a relationship and you're not feeling loved, I do think understanding your love language can be helpful. At the same time, just because my love language isn't gifts, just because it's not gifts doesn't mean I don't enjoy getting gifts. I enjoy getting gifts just as much as the next person. And so if somebody's just constantly giving me my love language, because that's what this label says, because I took a test, now you're missing out on other things that you're not getting because you didn't check it off on a box. And I really like to look at so many things are really, it comes down to skill set or mindset. And a skill set is just learning different skills. And the reality is, if you looked at the list, because I've checked off certain boxes with personality tests, and I've checked certain boxes off of love language, and all the different tests that you can take of who you are and what makes you happy. If you looked at that, I'm very much an introverted person. I really, I don't really jive very well in big groups. But the reality is, when I look at the way I want to show up in the world and the things that I want to do in life, it's going to take knowing that skill set of being good with people to advance in the things that I want to advance in. And so that's when the skill set comes in. The skill set comes in because the fact, now I want to be that person. I want to be the person who is good with other people. And the fact that I put a label on myself because I checked a box saying I like being more alone. I like taking time alone. I've known certain people, and maybe this isn't you, but I wanted to talk about this because I've met people who say, because they're a specific personality, because they're a specific, they're Gemini or they're something, they can't do XYZ. And that I don't think is any of the authors that created these personality tests or created these things. I don't think that that's what they meant. I think what the whole point was is learn who you are, figure out the box that you're in, but then expand the box, expand it, make it bigger. If you're somebody who doesn't feel comfortable in a large group, but you have a dream you have a specific type of dream, and it's going to be beneficial for you to have those skills to talk to people easily, then that's the skill set that you need to build. And we can't hold on to these labels that you're just not good at it because you're a yellow personality, because you're a white personality, and that makes you uncomfortable. And so holding on to these labels that keeps you in a box, that's never going to create happiness in your life. I think finding these rules out and finding these labels for ourselves can be helpful because now we understand the stories that we're telling ourselves. For me, one of the things that was very helpful to understand the labels was the fact that I grew up in a very high energy family and I was a very low energy person. So understanding that was extremely, extremely helpful for myself because now I knew what I was dealing with. I knew that a good majority of my family were high energy and I was trying to keep up with them. They weren't necessarily requiring of it. They were just running on their own speed. They were just running and living their best lives. At the same time, I was trying to keep up with them and it was exhausting. And I kept thinking, what is wrong with me? Why can't I do that? And so by putting a label on myself, I recognized, oh, you are a lower energy person. You're never where you're at right now, you can't maintain what they can maintain. But the interesting thing is the more I want to be authentic and show up in life in a very specific way, I gain the endurance to be a higher energy person. And it's okay. And I can maintain it. I can maintain it to a certain level. Just having the knowledge that I'm a lower energy person allows me to kind of understand that I have to build up my endurance, where somebody who is a higher energy person, they just can kind of go. They can kind of just go and figure it out and it's going to work out for them. For me, knowing that I'm a lower energy person, it just makes me aware of, okay, that's not something that you're going to just naturally go towards. But I have other gifts. I have other things. So if I want to build that, I want to build a higher energy, I want to be able to go as fast as they can, I'm going to have to work up to it. But so many times, or I shouldn't say so many times, sometimes I see people who they use, I'm this personality. I'm a yellow. I can't do XYZ. And I truly don't believe any of those people who created the personalities, who created the love languages, who created the different labels that we're all putting on ourselves, I really don't believe that they meant it for you to stay in a box. I think they meant it for you to educate yourself, for you to learn about yourself, for it to be useful, for it to be helpful to you, and then grow. And so many times, I think it's so easy that we find our comfort zone and we put ourselves in this little bubble because it's comfortable and because it makes us feel good. And then we say, I can't get out of this bubble. And I'm telling you, if you can learn to get out of the bubble and make yourself just slightly uncomfortable, and I'm not talking about full anxiety attack, uncomfortable. That's not helpful either. I'm talking about doing things that are challenging to you to grow that bubble or to grow that box that we've put ourselves in just slightly. Just keep growing it slightly. And I've done a ton of videos, I've done a ton of lives on this. If you are a person who's trying to if you're giving yourselves anxiety attacks and panic attacks all the time, you're doing too much. You just simmer down. That's too much. And I'm not saying you can't get there. I'm not saying you can't get there eventually. Just we got to grow a little slower. It's kind of like the concept of you're going to go to the gym and in a week you're gonna go from being 50 pounds overweight to having that rock hard abs and getting ready to be on stage in a muscle show. Like it doesn't work that way. And it's the same with building our comfort zone. If you're a lower energy person, be a lower energy person. There's nothing wrong with that. Even if you were shamed that you need to be more outgoing or this. Same with being a higher energy person. You probably got told all the time, you're too much, you're too this, you're too that. Calm down. Both get shamed all the time. When you realize you're a high energy or you realize you're a low energy, understand that's who you are. But at the same time, learning the skill sets of the other types is only going to be beneficial. And just because it doesn't come natural to you, we shouldn't not learn those skills. And we shouldn't just say, I can't do it because now I have this label on me. It makes it so that now we have a goal. Now we have, okay, what are we trying to achieve? Okay, I'm not somebody who, if you looked at the one of the personality things that I've taken, it says I'm lower on the emotional scale. Like I'm not a very emotional person, whereas another type would be a very high emotional person. They cry a lot more. And it's not that I don't feel emotion, it's that that's not automatically where I go. I think of things a little more logically, and I don't automatically jump to an emotional level. It doesn't mean I can't be emotional or I can't build that skill. It just means that's not where I'm going to go to at first. And I really believe that if the more skills that we learn, the better we understand people, the better we're going to relate to people, the better our relationships are going to be. And then the better that we're going to network or we're going to build business, the better health wise we're going to be. All right. I can definitely hear he is my new co-host, Hugo, here. Aren't you, buddy? He is not happy. He wants to get out. So I am going to end here, and was really happy for anybody who came to hang out. Thank you guys, and hope to do these more. All right, we will see you guys later.